good morning. This week's video is going to be a little different than most of our videos. This past week is the anniversary of our barn fire. We had a barn fire on August 19th of 2006, so we're going to do some reminiscing and show some video of that. So yeah, hopefully you'll enjoy that.
They started up there somewhere.
You help them. So where are you going?
I'm going to do a voiceover here as part of our video today. Our barn fire was on a Saturday morning. It started a little after 7 o'clock in the morning. We had just got done milking maybe half an hour before that, and our electric started blinking in at the house, and we looked out and there was flames shooting about 30 feet in the air out of the middle of the barn. So when the fire company got here, the main barn itself was pretty much fully engulfed. Our bank barn is a 50 by 100, and we had a 50 by 70 pole barn off of the one end, and then a 36-foot lean-to off of the front, and the milking parlor attached to the end of that 36-foot lean-to. So when the fire company got here, I said, the barn's pretty much gone. Try to concentrate on saving the parlor if you can. And this end that you're seeing right there now is the end of the 50 by 70 pole barn. It had a bunch of hay in it there. So yeah, it was a very intense hot fire.
That just fell down. I don't know if I caught the end of it or not. Here's all the vehicles. Another truck coming. I'm gonna get.
Okay, this end here is taken from the road. You can see the milking parlor up there. It's kind of that block stone or concrete block building sticking out there right to the left. When the barn went down, it kind of fell out into the driveway beside the barn or beside the milking parlor and was finished and burning. So they did a really good job of keeping the fire away from the parlor. This part right here was, we had some dog kennels where we had some dogs that we raised. We had a bunch of glass board in there. That's why it is smoking so bad. We were able to get all the dogs out before the fire got to them. I think we had 8 or 10 dogs total, all Labrador retrievers. And yeah, there was some calves in the end of the barn as well, and underneath the barn. I think we kept our springers in under the barn, and we kept our bottle calves in there till they were about a week old. And we were able to get in and get the calves out. It was full of smoke, but we were able to get them all out of there. But the 2 springers were back in under the barn. We could not get to them. That was a miracle that we only had 2 springers. Usually we have anywhere from 12 to 20. So yeah, but we did lose those 2 cows. That's the only ones we lost. There was a lot of people that showed up the day of the fire. You can see some of them there in the area. Some of them were neighbors, some of them were relatives, some of them were others that we learned to know over the years. And that afternoon, after the fire was out, I say that afternoon, it was about lunchtime when they had it out. They left us go ahead and start cleaning up. Over 200 people showed up to help with the cleanup, and that sure was a blessing. Yeah, there's just a tremendous amount of things that went into that. There you can see the barn hill that used to back up to go into the second story of the barn. And yeah, they were having trouble with keeping enough water, so that's why some of it pretty much for as intense of the fire as the fire was. So that's why you see a lot of it was just burning. They were concentrating on keeping it away from the melting parlor. But then as they did have extra water, they kept putting some of the rest out too. Yeah, I might add just a little bit here now, but as far as some of the cleanup, that afternoon over 200 people showed up, and until that evening we had 80% of the debris cleaned up, and that sure was a blessing. We were able to get electric service hooked back up. We were able to milk that afternoon. We had to milk about an hour late, I think it was, but we were able to milk that afternoon.
And all the vehicles up along the hill. People still coming in.
Okay, here's our Harvestor Sallow. The Harvestor got ruined from the fire. The fire was so hot and intense, it burnt up along the side of it and actually started building up pressure inside from the heat and blew out the roof. And yeah, I think this video was actually taken Sunday morning. They had, like I said before, I think we had cleaned 80% of it up by Saturday afternoon. The fire company did have to come back out a couple times there because it started flaming up and smoldering. We had young guys that offered to stay up overnight and watch it so it didn't flame up and catch anything. But yeah, like I said, we were able to save part of the lean-to behind the parlor. That's what you're seeing there. We later took all that down when we went to build our new barn, but we were able to set up a temporary holding area. Yeah, there you can see the walls, the foundation walls of the old bank barn, and there where that track goes settings where the 50 by 70 pole barn would have been sticking out through this end. Yeah, there's a bunch of debris laying out in the field. There's the Harvestor unloader. It burnt that all out. Just some more of the kind of the end corner of the bank barn there. Yeah, the concrete sallows, it burnt a bunch of the doors out of them. That sallow still had silage in it. I think maybe 15 or 20 feet. But the Harvestor still had about 50 ton of high moisture corn in it. That other end concrete sallow was empty, but it burnt a bunch of the doors out of that one as well. Yeah, it got so hot it blew some concrete off of the side of the wall there. And yeah, it was a very intense hot fire. We later tore down the Harvestor Sallow. It had been a 20 by 70 and we rebuilt it as a 20 by 85. There was a bunch of metal debris laying out in the field. We had some people come in. It was the middle of August, so we still had our corn standing. They come in that afternoon and chopped some corn, and so we had a place to get around and lay a bunch of metal debris out. Yeah, like I said earlier, it did happen on a Saturday morning. We cleaned a bunch up Saturday yet, and then I think this was Sunday afternoon. It started really flaming up some again, and that there was a bunch of hay up above the barn. Okay, this would be Monday morning. A bunch of people showed up with dump trucks and track hoes. They're hauling cleaning the rest of the debris up and tore the barn hill out. There they opened the side of the silo up to dig the high moisture corn out. A neighbor man had a ag bagger. We were able to clean it all out, and they scooped it up then with a skid loader and put it out in an ag bag. It was still good. It was really burnt over along the wall toward the edge where the main fire was, but by Monday evening we pretty much had everything cleaned up, and by Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock we started pouring footers for the new barn. Pulling the unloader out of the silo to get it out of the road. The unloader was pretty much ruined, at least everything that was sticking outside. And another thing I wanted to mention, all the excavating was donated free. We didn't have to pay for any of that. That was a tremendous blessing. We live in a fairly large Christian community, and people just poured in to help. There's a bunch of gates then we set up on Monday for a makeshift holding area. This would have been getting towards Monday afternoon. We were getting most of it cleaned up. The harvester, they had reached in with a backhoe and dug as much out as they could of the high moisture corn, and when they got done with what they could get out, they actually picked a smaller skid loader up and set it up in there. And that's how we finished cleaning all the rest of it out. I would venture to guess we didn't actually lose more than a ton or two. We had two neighbor men that were a tremendous blessing here on a couple of these days. The one of them you see there in the straw hat, Alvin Oberholzer was his name. The other one was Jay Grove. Both of them kind of took charge as almost like foremen and kind of kept everybody heading toward the directions they needed to be. And they would come talk to me if they didn't know what to do next. And yeah, it was a tremendous blessing. Yeah, the skid loader was heavy enough they had to have some guys standing on the back of the bigger skid loader or else it would tip forward. So yeah, to get it all in there. They took the bolts loose off of a couple of the sheets, but then we did have to torch that one bottom sheet out to be able to get it up in there the way we did. Skid loader in there. They lifted the bucket up in there and then put the bucket on with the skid loader in the silo. The silo is 20 foot wide, so there was plenty of room to get around in there with the skid loader. I don't remember who was driving the skid loader. I don't remember any of them details, but I know it wasn't me. Coming in and chopping some corn that day. That would have been on Saturday. It was a local custom choppers that did our chopping for us then. They came in and I forget if they chopped 15 or 20 loads, and we they did all that. The bagger, the neighbor man that has the bagger, they did all the bagging, and that was all donated and done for free.
I have to let this one listen to this.
think this was maybe Thursday or Friday of the week after the barn fire. We started with the feed room. They poured the footers in the wall for the feed room there, and then these are the trusses being set for the feed room. That's me and my brother-in-law there on the trusses, and I think there was a local contractor that we had lined up to build us a new dry cow barn about a month after the fire. He was going to do it in September, and I'd caught a hold of him and told him about our barn fire and asked him if he would be able to come and head this up, and he said he would be. So yeah, he came and they started it right away that next week, but they left a bunch of us help. The day we did the feed room, he said he only needed about 10 guys, but the day here's where we were setting the trusses on the main pole barn. It was a 70 by 132 as the main pole barn. And I think there was close to 50 people here that day at least, maybe more, between 50 and 70. And they were able to get the trusses all set. They were calling for a bunch of rain later that day. It was the remnants of a hurricane coming up through. And so we were able to get the trusses all set and about half of the roof on before it started to rain. And it was just amazing how they were no more than getting the trusses set, and there was guys on each side like that nailing the lath on, and yeah, it just all, I think we had them trusses all set in barely about 2 hours time. There was a local contractor that headed it up, so he was in charge, and everybody else that was there was helping with what needed to be done. But here again, all of this was donated labor. Obviously, I did need to pay the contractor for his time and his help. He had a crew of 4 or 5 guys here. And I should say this yet, we were able to build our dry cow barn later in the fall then, being he was able to squeeze this in. I think we waited till October or November to build our dry cow barn. Yeah, another thing I might make mention of, we had people that donated food, and church groups and neighbors actually came and helped serve the food some days. But I think we fed people for 3 weeks and never had to make any of the food, so that was a tremendous blessing. And people were donating food, people were showing up to help serve it. A local used appliance company had donated 2 refrigerators and freezers to help or to keep food in. Our milk company donated all kinds of drinks, milk and flavored drinks. And yeah, I mean, it was just unreal, all the way the community pitched in. So it was 3 weeks to the day of the fire when we were completely done with everything other than the curtains on the barn. But the barn was done and we had cows in the barn 3 weeks to the day of the fire.
Arden said 70 to 80. I did a rough count on that side of the building.
Yeah, here's where we're able to start putting metal on. I think it had just started raining about there, and there was enough guys on the roof. I mean, they were barely getting the metal up as fast as the guys were fastening it down. But we were glad they did get on what they got on, because we started at the end right behind the Melkin parlor. I think it ended up raining about 3 or 4 inches there on the next day, so I was glad that they could get the metal on that we got on, but then they had to quit. And it was a couple days after that we did the concrete work. We headed that up ourselves. The construction company didn't do that. A couple of neighbors and friends had offered to help with that. So yeah, I think there was several, I forget how many people showed up that day, but we poured 140 yards, 14 loads of concrete in about 4 hours. Yeah, we had said about the harvester getting ruined, and yeah, there was some local guys here that wanted the good sheets out of the harvester silo to build a smaller silo with, so they came and tore it down. they put some brackets there on the roof and then ran some straps up from that. I forget if it was 10 or 12 of them total. Had a crane. Once they had that all fastened, they had safety ropes hooked to them to get out there to fasten them brackets tight. And then it looked kind of dangerous even with their safety ropes connected to them. But yeah, then they loosened it up down at the bottom and picked it up with the crane and slowly moved it over to where then they took it apart, started at the bottom and kept lowering it as they took it apart sheet by sheet. And they had several guys, I don't know, probably 8 or 10 helping them. We didn't have to help with any of that. And they just took all the bolts and took all the nuts off and took all the bolts out, and the sheets that were good they laid over on one stack, and the sheets that were bad they put over on another stack, and they had it all down, I don't know, within 4 to 6 hours. It actually didn't take them that long. Of what it looked like there was one sheet off of that ring, and you can see guys were inside working too. The nuts were on the outside, but they'd have a guys outside loosening them up and then guys inside pulling the bolts out. See a really good view of them inside working there. And actually probably kind of dangerous, but that's how they did it, and how we rebuilt it too. Actually, you'll see that here after a bit. We were able to save the bottom row of sheets on the Harvestor, so that was a blessing. Oh yeah, there you can really see how the roof had really expanded. It would have normally been smooth, but you can see how it's all pushed out and uneven looking. It had blew up, like we actually seen it when it did it. It kind of expanded, then you heard this big loud pressure release. And yeah, here momentarily you'll see where they were rebuilding the new silo. The old one was 70 feet high, the new one is 85. So yeah, they did have several neighbor guys came and helped with the rebuilding, and we had it all done in one day. We rebuilt the whole thing in one day. We rebuilt it the same way as they took the old one down, with a crane, and started with the roof and started pulling it up and adding sheet by sheet.
We'll reap in joy.